Janesville. Welcome to Park Place Views, brought to you by the City of Janesville and JATVMedia Services. I'm your host, Molly Nolte, and I'm the Management Information Specialist in the City Manager's Office. This monthly program aims to keep Janesville residents informed by highlighting the people, places, events, and partners in the City of Janesville. On last month's episode, we celebrated the 50th episode of Park Place Views by taking a special tour of downtown Janesville with Director of Public Works, Paul Woodard, and Planning Director Dwayne Sherrick. If you're interested in viewing past episodes of Park Place Views, they're available to watch on the city's website or JATV's YouTube channel. On this month's episode, I'll be speaking with City Manager Mark Freitag to gain an insider perspective as Mark closes his 5th year as the City Manager of Janesville. Mark has served as Janesville City Manager since December of 2013. He is a veteran of the United States Army, where he served as a colonel towards the end of his 25-year military career. Mark was the garrison commander at Fort Hood, Texas from 2010 to 2012, and finished his Army career as Deputy Commander of the United States Army in Alaska. Thank you for joining me here today, Mark.
Great to be here, Molly. Thanks.
So I'm going to ask you a series of questions here about the City of Janesville. You've been here for 5 years. That has to be a milestone for you. You grew up in a military family as well as served in the military yourself, and you must have lived in so many different places. What makes Janesville special?
Well, first of all, to answer your question about the milestone, it's really a milestone on two fronts. The longest job that I ever had in the military was 2.5 years, and that's typical in the military, somewhere between a year to 3 years. But longest job in the military was 2.5 years, so 5 years here in the city of Janesville is twice that amount. And then when you think about a place that I've called home, I grew up in the Army. My dad was in the Army, so we moved quite regularly. My own Army career, same thing. So prior to arriving in Janesville, the longest I've ever lived anywhere was just shy of 4 years at college at West Point. And so, again, another milestone for me and for my family here in Janesville. And so I would tell you that, the things that we really like about Janesville are that, Janesville, is a town of 65,000 people, lots of things to do, lots of opportunities, but it still has that small town feel. I think about the Memorial Day Parade, the Labor Day Parade, the Jolly Jingle Parade, the fact that the community comes out to support those. Just recently, attended the Veterans Day ceremony at Traxler Park, and, what a great way for the community to celebrate veterans and the people that live in our community, but it's that small town feel, because that doesn't necessarily happen in larger cities, and so that's really special to us. I would also tell you that we like the location of Janesville. I mentioned that, Janesville's got that small town feel, but you still have all the things that you want to do. But, frankly, if you can't find it in Janesville, you can get to Madison or Rockford quickly. You can get over to Milwaukee in the matter of an hour or maybe a little bit more depending upon traffic, and certainly to the Chicago Metroplex within 2 hours. So, location plays a big role in Janesville. And then I think probably the third thing that really makes Janesville special to both me and my family is the fact that, it's founded in Midwest values, and certainly that Midwest, work ethic where, people, they work hard, they get the job done. It's always done to the absolute best that they can get it done, and they don't need pats on the back to get it done. They just do it, and they're happy to do it. And so that Midwest values and that work ethic are special about Janesville, and so I continue to tell people that that's not the norm. Having lived everywhere that I've lived over the course of my childhood, moving from base to base in the Army with my dad, or my own military career, that's not necessarily something that you're going to find in every community. So it is special here in Janesville.
Thank you. So as we near the end of 2018, we should talk about the city's strategic plan. The city first developed its strategic plan under your administration in 2014. Why is it important that the city have a strategic plan, and why do we follow it?
Yeah, so, first of all, I would tell you that not every community out there has a strategic plan, but when I first got here, the city council said, we've always wanted to have a strategic plan, and so we'd sure like you to take that project on. And so we did. And what the strategic plan does for the community is it helps, certainly for us to plan by year the things that we want to accomplish or do as a city and as a community. but more importantly, it helps you to prioritize and allocate resources. Whether that's people, whether that's money, or whether that's time that you can commit to it. And I would tell you, looking back on Janesville over the past 5 years, the city is a much different city, and certainly a much better city than we were in 2013, mainly driven by the fact that the economy has turned around, both at the national level and at the local level. And that's not something that I necessarily have anything to do with, but because we have that strong economy right now, that allows us to do things and to make progress, and that strategic plan has helped map that out over 5 years. So we know what we're doing this year, we know what we're doing next year, and certainly we know what we're doing 5 years from now. And then the other thing that I think has really been of benefit in this idea of a strategic plan is that it's a way for the city to communicate to the residents and the business owners, this is what we're planning on doing. And so there's transparency in that people can see what the city is going to do year by year. And frankly, if they don't like what they're seeing, they can come back and tell the city and we can make adjustments. But I think because of that transparency, we've got buy-in from the community about what we're doing currently and where we're headed. And so that combination of economy, strategic plan, and community buy-in really help move the community forward.
Mark, as you know, if anyone has taken a walk or a drive through Janesville lately, they'd notice, like you said, a lot of development and change. Can you highlight some of these projects in terms of crossing items off the strategic list, strategic plan?
Yeah, certainly. So, in 2018, we probably have, approximately 150 to 200 tasks that the city is going to accomplish, or at least try to accomplish, in the given year. And to just highlight a few, this year, one of the things that was on the task was to purchase and implement our second leaf vacuum truck. And right now we're in the middle of leaf pickup across the city. It's a huge event for the city staff to undertake. You think about driving around 330 miles of roadway across the city and policing up all of the leaves that have fallen so that they don't go into the stormwater system. So that's huge from a city perspective, but frankly, it's a manual labor kind of job, folks going along and picking that stuff up and throwing it into a dumpster and away you go. And so we learned a couple years ago we were going to try a vacuum truck, and we put it to the test last year. We liked it so much, we said we're going to try getting another one. So we now have 2 in the fleet. We're currently employing both, and we have a plan to buy several more here in the future to help facilitate that leaf pickup program. But that's just an example of one item. Some other things that we said we were going to do. As I said, the economy's booming, lots of jobs in the community. Frankly, we don't have enough housing stock in the community, and so it's a seller's market. And we said we really need to hold a housing and development summit, which we did this past June, to kind of look at, are there things that we can do as a community to incentivize and encourage either multifamily housing development or single-family housing development. And kind of as a result of that, the council approved here several months ago the idea of using tax increment financing to assist and incentivize builders, developers in producing and building multifamily homes. So that will help offset that current shortage. That's an example. Obviously an emotional community action this summer was the removal of the Monterey Dam, but that was something that we had planned, we programmed, we put money towards it earlier this year, and we removed the Monterey Dam in July, and now we've started the efforts to do the river restoration along the Monterey area itself. We've implemented a vacant building program. We've installed GPS technology on our buses. We've replaced the City Hall roof, the HVAC system, and then remodeled council chambers on the 4th floor. We're currently wrapping up a feasibility study for a possible indoor sports complex with ice and potentially a turf field of some sort, track, et cetera, et cetera. More to follow. Don't know what the results of that are yet, but that was something that was on the plan and we've executed in 2018. And then again, working with community members, we had a group that plays pickleball come to the council and say, we'd sure like to see pickleball courts, established at Riverside Park. And so we worked with that group. They provided some funding, the city provided some funding, and we were able to make that work for 2018, and those are playable currently. And then, kind of the rose, if you will, of all things strategic plan is that we said in 2014 we need to double our road program for the city and go from 6 miles a year to 12 miles a year. And we implemented that several years ago, and we continue to execute that. And it's made a significant improvement to just our community in general, but certainly, way of life in that, we're driving on nice new roads as opposed to, some that might be a little bit more challenged than others. And so that's just a snapshot of all the things that the city has done over the past year, but, it's a great news story.
So that was just a few things from recently. So can you talk a little bit about 2019? Can people expect the city of Janesville to slow down?
Yeah, not at all. Not at all. We're moving full forward as fast as we can, but as appropriate, as logically as we can, as fiscally responsible as we can. And so, one of the things that is on the plan for next year is to partner with our local schools and get out and talk with our young high schoolers about a life or a career in public administration and public service, whether that be in the fire department, in the police department, public works, city government, city management, etc. So, that's something that's on the strategic plan, and we'll work that with the school district this next year. One of the things that we're doing internally is going to develop a city employee intranet so that it's easily accessible for people to communicate and to access resources in the city. We're looking at installing cameras on all of our JTS buses here this next year. And then one of the things that's been, frankly, something that's troubled the community for a long time is in Oak Hill Cemetery. The roads up in Oak Hill Cemetery, there are some concrete, some asphalt, and they're in terrible shape. And so the community's been saying, when are you going to fix this? When are you going to fix this? And so the good news is we put that on the strategic plan, scheduled for 2019, and so we're going to appropriate money this next year to address not all the roads, but certainly a portion, and then have that repeat over the next 5 years or so that we get those roads returned to a state of good use and good condition. One of the things from a safety perspective that we've got on the strategic plan is the large concrete deck that's in front of City Hall, frankly, is failing. We've got seepage and salt, etc., that have eroded the deck, and so we've got essentially a problem set not only on the deck itself where people walk, but then on the 2 levels underneath that are both garages where vehicles travel, equipment is stored, and so that's not a good setting from a public safety perspective. So again, we put it on the strategic plan several years ago. We're coming to that point, 2019, where we're going to execute it, and we'll put money towards that. One of the things that the police officers went to several years ago is 100% of our officers that are in the field will wear a body camera, and it's that time that we need to replace those, and so we're going through that process to replace those. In our fire department, we've been very, very aggressive over the last 5 years of purchasing new engines and new ambulances and new other equipment items, but specifically we've replaced 5 of 6 ambulances in the last 4 years, and so in 2019 we'll replace that 6th ambulance. They have a lifespan of about 7 years, and so it's important to keep those on a regular schedule for replacement. And then again in 2019 we plan on resurfacing and repairing 12 miles of city roadway, and we'll just continue that for the foreseeable future. And that's just a snapshot of what we're doing in 2019.
So let's talk about the downtown specifically. What were the projects completed as part of the ARISE program this year?
Yeah, so again, for the community, ARISE was a plan that was approved in 2015, and here we are, we're in execution, and 2018, we did a couple things. Number one, we put in a new fitness court downtown. We did that in concert with the National Fitness Campaign, partnered with SSM Health to do that, and so it was a city National Fitness Campaign and SSM Health project, but now we've got free, open to the public, and 24/7 accessible fitness court, world-class facility, if you will, and that's right downtown, and so pretty awesome. The other thing that we did, and this had some community pushback and concern, and that was the idea of converting Court Street, which is in our downtown, from one-way traffic to two-way traffic. And we did 2 years ago, or I guess 18 months ago, almost 2 years ago, we did Milwaukee Street. And so this was really part 2 of that effort, and all in alignment with ARISE and the ARISE plan. And the intent is to slow traffic down, make the downtown more pedestrian friendly, and essentially expose the businesses that are along those roads to two-way traffic as opposed to only one-way. And so, some people said, oh my goodness, we're going to have people driving the wrong way. And sure as the world, we did, but it wasn't out of control. We haven't had any major accidents, and so the community's figuring it out. So that was a great news story. The other thing that we did, and we just celebrated, as you were well aware, here a couple weeks ago, we opened up, and celebrated our Festival Street. And when you think about that Festival Street, it's really kind of the finishing piece to our west side of our town square. And so the other things that happened earlier this year, we dedicated the J.P. Cullen Memorial Pavilion. We opened up the interactive water feature, and then, here in October, celebrated the opening of the Festival Street. And so the west side, for all intents and purposes, is now complete. Other things that we've got going on, if anybody's been downtown Janesville recently, they'll notice that the old Mercy Options building, which was essentially on the corner of Court Street and the river, that's been demolished. The city purchased that, opened it back up for green space and potential future development. We've begun the demolition of the Milwaukee Street Bridge, which is kind of the northern extent of the town square. Frankly, the river's not cooperating right now, so high water and fast water are not a good combination when you want to take a bridge down. But we'll continue to work through that and hopefully get that open back up next summer. And then one is in the ARISE plan was always the idea of bringing a hotel to the downtown. And this is not something that the city has done itself, but we certainly incentivized it with some TIF assistance, and that is Cobblestone Hotels broke ground and are building a 4-story, 53-room hotel right on the corner of Milwaukee Street and the river in the downtown, in the heart of the downtown. It'll have the Wissota Chop House, so a restaurant in the downtown. And we're really excited about having that new asset in the downtown. So it's been a very, very positive, progressive, good year for the city when it comes to ARISE in the downtown.
That's an impressive list for just 2018. So going forward into 2019, what can we expect for ARISE implementation? Yeah,
so again, 2019 is going to be a busy year for the city, but not as busy, I would say, as 2018. The big project for the city in 2019 is to finish up the Milwaukee Street Bridge reconstruction. So again, they're taking it down this year, and over the winter, they'll build that thing back up, and by hopefully midsummer, it will be open to traffic, and it will be just as nice as the Jackson Street Bridge was. We did that project in 2014 to 15, and so it's very, very similar. Not as large and long as the Jackson Street Bridge replacement, but again, a big event and a big improvement in our downtown. The other thing that the city is doing, and this is in cooperation and conjunction with our partners at AriseNow. AriseNow, again, is the city, Downtown Janesville Incorporated, for Janesville, and then Janesville Performing Arts Center. Those 4 entities have been working this group, if you will, and these initiatives under the auspices of AriseNow. And one of the things that they've raised private dollars for, so no city dollars, this is all private dollars, is to put in a pedestrian bridge to connect the west side and the east side in between Milwaukee Street and Court Street bridges. And that bridge is going to be called the Blaine Gilbertson Family Heritage Bridge. And we expect construction to begin this spring with opening by fall time. And so lots of good things happening in that regard. And then kind of caveating what I talked about previously, Cobblestone Hotel expects to open its doors late spring. And so a couple city projects, and then certainly a couple private projects. And then I think kind of the final act of 2019 when it comes to ARISE that we're really looking forward to is Blackhawk Community Credit Union announced here maybe a month or so ago that they're going to build a 300,000 square foot complex on the site of the former Rock County Jail facility along the banks of the river. And a component of that project is going to be a legacy center, or a museum, if you will, dedicated to the legacy of General Motors in the community. But this larger project, 300,000 square feet, will be called Reflections Plaza, and they intend to break ground sometime next fall. They haven't defined the date yet, but that's significant because the original factory, original building, the cornerstone was laid in 1919. So it will be 100 years exactly from the time of that original cornerstone being put in to the time that we're now breaking ground on a GM Legacy Center. And so very, very excited for the community and certainly for Blackhawk Community Credit Union.
And Mark, you've already touched on this a little bit, but people probably continue to hear about these public-private partnerships. Can you talk about partnerships and why they're so important to the city of Janesville, not just the downtown, but the entire city at large?
Yeah, so I mean, the partnerships and the fact that the city provides municipal services, but we can provide municipal services, but if you want to make municipal services spectacular or really special, the fact that we have partners that are willing to join us on some of these projects is really what makes things great in Janesville. And so, the city can't do it alone, but I would tell you currently we have 600 volunteers that assist the city in some kind of capacity, whether they're a friends group that's taking care of one of our parks, whether they're volunteers, individual volunteers that help out at recreational programs like the Enchanted Forest here, that we did a couple weeks ago, or the individual volunteers who serve on city boards, commissions, committees, or the city council. Those are all volunteers that give of their time to give back to the community in some way, shape, or form. Some other examples of groups that really have stepped it up and made some significant impacts is I'd highlight the Friends of Oak Hill Chapel. 5 years ago they were talking about tearing this chapel down, and this past June we essentially did the dedication and the ribbon cutting on the restored, newly renovated, and frankly beautiful Oak Hill Chapel. And so that's a great news story about public-private partnerships and the community coming together with individual dollars, some city dollars, and then certainly some corporate or organizational dollars. But a great news story. And then obviously, we always have lots of the public service organizations that help, in some way, shape, or form. Lions Beach, the Rotary Botanical Gardens, Optimist Park, Riverside Park, and Friends of Riverside, et cetera, et cetera. So lots of good things going on. And if you think about in the downtown specifically, the city, and I've always used this analogy about an ice cream sundae. The city's going to give you, the bowl and a couple scoops of ice cream. But our partners at AriseNow, specifically through Ford Foundation, which is the financial arm of Ford Janesville, they've raised nearly $5 million to put towards the town square and a future renovations and improvements at Janesville Performing Arts Center. But they're the ones that are putting the toppings, the nuts, the ice cream, and the cherries on that sundae. And so they're really going to make it special. And so, two examples are that interactive water feature, totally funded by private dollars, and the J.P. Cullen Memorial Pavilion, totally funded by private dollars. And so very, very excited about that and where that will go in the future. They've just announced that they're doing now a public fundraising activity and initiative, and so very excited to see where that goes here in the near future. But bottom line is the city couldn't do what the city needs to do without partnerships on multiple levels and through various different programs.
Well, let's change directions just a little bit. So as people may have heard, the former GM assembly plant has been officially renamed the Centennial Industrial Park by its current owner, Commercial Development Company, Incorporated. What can you tell us about the site's demolition and the progress there?
Yeah, so, again, back in December of 2017, General Motors came to Janesville and announced that they were selling the plant and all of its, properties, all of its structure, and all the stuff inside. I mean, it was a big deal, to a company called Commercial Development Company. And they informed the community that they'd begin the demolition of the plant itself. And they started that in, I guess it was mid-April of 2018. And so, you know, if anybody hasn't driven by the GM plant or former GM plant recently, you really ought to. I mean, frankly, it's impressive to see the magnitude of the demolition effort that's going on. You know, I drove by just the other day and noticed that they've actually, you know, taken the plant itself out from behind the administrative brick building. And there's nothing back there other than some scrap piles. So they're moving very, very quickly. But I think what's impressive is that, you know, they started this past April. They said that the demolition would continue through to possibly second quarter. So you can figure mid-summer of 2019, the demolition effort should be cleaned up. But I think the thing that the community needs to appreciate is that you know, there was a lot of asbestos in that facility, and you know, they've been blessed and cleared by the DNR that they got all of that asbestos out of there, and so, you know, that was something that had to happen before they could demo. So you know, two wins right now. One, asbestos removal. Two is the demolition moving on time. You know, and we'll see kind of where it goes. There's still some environmental work that's probably going to have to be done on that site. You know, kudos to Commercial Development Company. They have held two community engagement forums down at the Rock County Jobs Center here over the last couple months. The first one was just to kind of solicit you know, feedback and, you know, kind of what people's thoughts are about what should happen on the site. And then they came back here in late September and provided kind of an update of what the plan looks like. And so, you know, it's very, very obvious that they see the value of the, if you will, oversized infrastructure that's on site, and more importantly, all of the rail infrastructure that's on site. So, you know, we're very, very hopeful that they're able to bring future businesses, new businesses to the site that are going to be able to put that infrastructure to its best use. You know, the city remains very, very open and engaging with Commercial Development Company on future use of TIF incentives to encourage people to develop, bring jobs to the community, and really to reinvigorate Janesville's south side. I mean, lots of good things happening on the south side currently. You've got Shine that you know, is going to hopefully break ground on its, you know, major facility here in early 2019 at the latest. You know, frankly, with Shine and then the redevelopment of GM and all the other construction activity, I mean, south side's booming and the future is bright.
So staying on the south side, but jumping across the river, we can talk about the Monterey area. So you already mentioned that we have successfully removed the Monterey Dam. And since that time, the city's been well underway with beginning the Monterey Area River Restoration Project. So what can you tell us about this exciting project and kind of the progress there? Yeah, so,
you know, frankly, the city removed, as I said, the Monterey Dam in 2018 in July, so it was middle of the summer. You know, water levels were low and the future was bright. And, you know, unfortunately, Mother Nature kind of changed the tune on us a little bit here these last couple months. And we've had a lot of rain. And so because of all the rain, we now have high water. We have very, very fast moving currents. And so that has slowed some of the development of the restoration efforts. The plan was originally to, you know, make sure that the area around the Monterey Dam was totally done and finished here this fall, but because of that high water level and those fast currents, that probably won't happen, and we'll need to carry those restoration efforts into the spring of 2019. But I would estimate that the area around the Monterey Dam site itself and the Monterey Lagoon, if you will, by the school and the park, that will all be finished up next spring and early summer. And then really, you know, you're going to plant everything, but you're going to have to give it some time to grow, to mature, to develop, see how things adjust with water levels going up and down. And so there'll be some tweaks that need to be played out. But, you know, you can figure over the course of the next 2 years, we're going to get a pretty good view of this restoration effort looks like. And frankly, I'm excited to see this improved kind of landscape, if you will, down along the river.
And as I mentioned earlier, Mark, you've just completed your 5th year as our city manager, and we just spoke a lot about what the city has accomplished just in 2018. Let's talk about the last 5 years as a whole. What are some of the city's achievements completed in the last 5 years?
Yeah, so it's been a very, very busy 5 years, and I would tell you that it started out with some basic building blocks. As I came into the city in December of 2013, I recognized that we were missing some key components of, organizational structure and the potential for growth. And so, a couple of the things that we did right off the bat was, number one, we reorganized how the city was structured. So we developed some organizational structure, because it's important for people to know what their lanes are, who they're working for, et cetera, et cetera. So we cleaned up the organization chart for the city. And then we spent some time in those first 6 months, essentially establishing a mission statement for the city. You got to know what you're doing, in order to do it. We developed a community vision statement, and so, we knew where the community wanted to go. Then we rolled up our sleeves and we established that strategic we've already talked about. And then we kind of finished it up by establishing what our values are for the City of Janesville employees, our core values. And so once we had those basic building blocks in place, it really gave us the framework then to build the strategic plan and then to start developing those action items or those tasks within each of the goal areas for the strategic plan. And so our first goal in the strategic plan is the downtown. And so, looking back on 5 years, I think about, number one is we not only developed, but we have approved, the council approved in 2015 the ARISE plan, but most importantly, we've now implemented the ARISE plan. We're executing the ARISE plan and the revitalization of the downtown. And key and first and foremost to that was the demolition of the old parking plaza or deck that was over the river and had been there for 60 years. And so, getting that out of there was kind of the transformative start for all things ARISE in downtown. Kind of in that same venue, we've essentially applied for and received almost $1.75 million towards ARISE efforts, from an infrastructure standpoint. That's huge, because those are dollars that, frankly, are not being provided for out of the local levy. As I said earlier, we completed our west side of the town square to include the Festival Street, the fitness court, interactive water feature, Great River Lawn, J.P. Cullen Memorial Pavilion, et cetera, et cetera. Earlier in the cycle, back in 2014, we built and improved the Roth Pavilion. And when I first got here, that was essentially a raised platform down there in Lower Courthouse Park, and now we've got a pavilion and an elevated stage and sound system, and it's just awesome. We also were able to do some improvements to Jackson Street. One of the things that concerned me was connecting the downtown to the RCHS, Rock County Historical Society, and the Lincoln Tallman House. And so, we improved that road connectivity along Jackson Street between the downtown and Rock County Historical Society and the Tallman House. And then lastly, a big improvement to our downtown was the reconstruction and improvements to Main Street, both North Main and South Main. So, in the downtown, lots of activities. That's just, kind of a snapshot. There are certainly other things that have been going on, but, certainly downtown's moving forward. Switching kind of to economy, when you think about the city's economy, I said the national economy's booming, the local economy's booming, but kind of some evidence of that is the city hasn't built a hotel in the city in over 20 years, and here we are right now, and we've got 2 under construction, I know that there are other hotels that have contacted the city and are interested in potentially coming here too. So, that's a good sign that the economy is moving in the right direction. As we just discussed, Centennial Industrial Park is underway with Commercial Development Company, and where that goes, don't know, but it's very, very exciting. And then, when we talk a lot about TIF, and that's really the city's ability to incentivize somebody to either bring a business to Janesville or to expand a business in Janesville. But that's talking structure, and capacity. But when you look at the numbers, the city's created, just through the TIF deals that we've done over the last 5 years, over 1,000 new jobs in the community. And so, 1,000 new jobs created by the city doesn't necessarily capture all the ones that have been created by private companies that have expanded on their own. Granger comes to mind. I know they've created nearly 1,000 jobs, if not more. And then, another good sign about the community is that in October of 2018, our unemployment rate was at 2.5%, which is an all-time low. And so, what that tells me is we've got lots of jobs, but we need to get more people here to fill jobs, and so which then adds to our problem we talked about earlier with housing. So, it's a good problem to have, and so we're excited about the economy. Looking at financial sustainability, one of the big things that the city was able to achieve in the last 5 years is, we've lobbied the state legislature and the state administration, the governor's office, about the unequal, inequitable, unfair, frame it however you want, distribution of state shared revenue. Janesville is an anomaly. We have low property taxes per capita, and we get a low distribution of state shared revenue per capita. They should be inversely proportional. High property tax per capita, low shared revenue per capita, or vice versa. Ours are both low, and so we lobbied that and worked for a good solid 3 years. And this past year, 2017, the legislature and the governor supported a 5-year payment of $583,000 per year to the city of Janesville to kind of right the wrong and set that straight. And it doesn't make up for what I would call the inequitable share and distribution. However, it has made a difference, and we were able to hire additional police officers, additional firefighters, and lower our transit bus rates for those that ride JTS, our bus system. And so that's a great news story. I would tell you that the city's worked hard to write the sanitation fund and to write the stormwater fund, and we're currently working on writing the water fund, because these are all enterprise funds that are supposed to work like a business, and frankly, they were essentially going into the hole every year, and it was just compounding and getting worse. And frankly, thanks to the efforts of city staff and the approvals of the council, we were able to fix those 3 funds. So right kind of way forward there. Bond rating for the city, kind of the city's credit rating. So if you think about your personal credit rating, you want it to be 700, 800 or something like that. For the city, we want it to be AA or AAA. And so in the city's perspective, we in 2013 received a double capital A from Standard & Poor's, and we've been able to maintain that for the past 6 years now. And so, that's kind of a testament to the great work that the city does in maintaining its finances and keeping its finances in order. And so then looking at image and engagement, and I'm just going to run through the strategic plan if that's okay, but looking at image and engagement, when I first got here, our social media presence was kind of stale. We would post something and that was it. And what we've worked on very, very hard over the last 5 years is to make our social media presence interactive, so that we may post something, someone will reply back, and then we start that conversation. And so we've got a discussion, which you certainly well know. We've also implemented debit and credit card over-the-counter payments to make transactions, financial transactions with the city much easier, so that's huge. We've also set up a system where people can pay their Janesville municipal utility bill online via credit card, via debit card. Certainly something we couldn't do 5 years ago. We've developed a legislative program for the city where we take our concerns to both federal and state legislators, and that includes not only identifying and building agenda for each fiscal year, but to provide quarterly updates to those legislators, and then to hold every 2 years a roundtable with our state legislators to make sure that they understand what our concerns are here in Janesville that they might be able to assist with. A couple years ago, we launched a brand new website, new color scheme, new fonts, new access and accessibility, a great improvement to how we engage our customers or the residents of Janesville. We launched Google Transit, which is an ability for people to look on their smartphones and know what time is the bus supposed to arrive at this particular bus stop. Huge improvement, and once we get those the GPS installed, there should be an application where we can then start to track where the bus is. Did I just miss the bus, or is the bus still coming? And you'll be able to track that on your cell phone. Then from a transparency perspective, we've opened up a couple programs, one called Open Budget, one called Open Expenditures, and then a performance measurement system that's online called Park Place Performs, where people can look at our expenditures, look at our budgets over the last 10 years, and then more importantly, kind of look at how we're doing. How are we measuring our own performance? And are we hitting our goals that we've identified? And so, great program. And then, one that's personally very important to me and was the development that we had with the school district of Janesville to identify and create our City of Janesville flag. We didn't have one previous, and we thought that would be a great way to kind of identify and unify the community around a symbol for the community, and that would be the flag. And then I think, even right here at Janesville Access Television, but JATV, as everyone knows it, they began filming and then broadcasting not only our council meetings, which we were doing previously, but we've added in the Plan Commission, the ALAC, and then the Community Development Authority meetings. And so, again, just another way to provide some additional transparency to our residents, our patrons, our customers. Looking at infrastructure, as I said, we've doubled the street program from 6 to 12 miles per year. We've built a new transit services center, a new central fire station. We've put in the Riverside Park splash pad, and we've done the Bond Park skate pad or skate park. Just all good improvements to the offerings, if you will, of Janesville. I mentioned we replaced and totally reconstructed the Jackson Street Bridge. Around town, people aren't aware of this, but when you look at a street light, about 50% of those are owned by the city, and 50% of those are owned by Alliant. And the city, for our 50% of all of those street lights around town, we've replaced the old lights with LED lights, which creates about a $60,000 savings for the community every year, which is huge. We constructed the Condi Street pretreatment facility that we run in cooperation with Seneca Foods. We upgraded County Highway G when Dollar General was built, and so we had to improve some road access there for all of the trucks that are coming in and out. In cooperation with our partner Blackhawk Technical College, we ran water access all the way down, so there's a huge loop that heads down County G, hits Blackhawk Tech, and then comes back up Highway 51, so significant improvement there. And then one that I always get a chuckle with is the Leadership Development Academy had one of their groups that looked at how do we get a library bookmobile, that's out in the community to provide books and access to those books. And so they used a retired or an ambulance that was moving out of service. Put some library logos and bookmobile logos on it, and now that's one of the pride and joys of not only the library but certainly the community. And I know when the kids see it coming, they're pretty excited about that. So great project. Looking at the performance culture for the City of Janesville employees, we want to make sure that we're taking good care of our City of Janesville employees, not only with pay and benefits, but professional development opportunities, and certainly, developing our future leaders. And so when I think about where the city was at in 2013, we didn't have a training program. Now we have a robust training program for City of Janesville. We didn't have an emergency management program. Now we have not only an emergency operations center, but a rather robust emergency management training program. We've also required all of our city employees to become NIMS compliant, National Incident Management System compliant, based upon kind of their level of service inside the city. We've established within the HR office a new retirement policy with a checklist for somebody who's going to retire. We've developed onboarding processes and procedures for people that are coming in new to the city, and we've revamped our performance evaluation system and taken it from a paper system to an online system. And then, one that I am very, very proud of is the work that the city has done on a safety program. When I got here, our fire department by far had the best safety program in the city. Other departments, not so much. And so everybody's gotten on board. We now have a city safety program. I would offer the fire department's safety program is still probably the most robust, but DPW, police department, and the administration, and here at the library, everybody's doing good and great things. And so we're starting to see some of the effects and benefits of that. I think trending right now, we're going to be probably 20 events, if you will, accidents or injuries, less than what our norm has been over the last several years. And so that's probably a good measure and a check on how that program is working. Looking at safe and healthy community, here in the library, as you well know, the library is going through a renovation fundraising campaign, people in the Janesville community love Hedberg Public Library. They love their library. Strange, don't see that in other communities, but that's the reality here in Janesville. And they're a great organization, provide a great service, but they're looking at how do we renovate this building that's been, kind of in its current form for 20 years. And so they've been out on a public fundraising campaign, and to date, I think they've raised about $1.3 million towards a $1.7 million goal. And so that's a great, effort by the library, great project, and certainly, generations will continue to benefit from those efforts here in the years to come. So kudos to the library staff. In our police department, like I said, we've brought on 3 additional police officers. The Chief Moore and the police department have done a superb job over the last 5 years of engaging the 4th Ward and the Look West neighborhoods, which frankly, 10 years ago, there was some questions about what the future of those neighborhoods was going to look like. And they've applied a lot of resources, but one of the things that they started here in the last 5 was the small neighborhood outings or group meetings, where they go out, they take activities, officers to the particular block, neighborhood, street, and just engage with the community and build that that rapport, that respect, that trust that's so important between law enforcement and neighborhoods such as 4th Ward and Look West. And so that's a good news story. Across the board, the city has a historically low crime rate, which is something that every community would like to see, but it's happening here in Janesville. And then kind of in the realm of diversity and inclusion for the community, JPD has reinvigorated and reestablished its African American Advisory Liaison Committee, and so that's a good news story, and frankly, they've been worth their weight in gold. As far as some activities that have happened in the community over the last 5 years, that group has really done a great job of helping to connect the police department with those affected by whatever those instances may have been. As I said, we've got body-worn cameras out there on the street, so every police officer that's in the field is going to have a body-worn camera. And then I think one of the testaments of the police department, always looking at how they can make something better, stronger, improved, is they've worked on a mental health flagging system where an officer, before going into a residence, can identify, does somebody inside that residence or that business, are they affected by mental health issues or concerns? And then tied to that is how best to engage that individual. And so, that's gotten national attention. It's kind of, JPD leading the way, and a great news story. And so very, very effective. But all good things for, certainly for the city. Inside the fire department, again, we've, created 3 additional firefighter positions, which allows for, the manning or staffing of that 5th ambulance out on the west side, which is something that's been a goal for the fire department for many years. And so, not that it's done 100% of the time, but I know we're a lot better off than we were 5 years ago. You know, we've certainly spent a lot of time, energy, and effort upgrading the fire and emergency equipment, whether that's engines, ambulances, the Zodiac boats, command vehicles, SCBA devices, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I would offer that the equipment that the fire department currently has is probably the best it's been in quite some time, and so that's a good news story for the community. The fire department has established an in-house maintenance program, which is a little bit different than the rest of the city operates, and we'll see kind of where that goes, but so far they're having very, very good results and progress on that. And then, you know, I think this is kind of a great testament to not only the equipment, but to the people that are operating the equipment. But we got notified here maybe a month or so ago that Janesville, you know, is one of the nation's, I think, top 3 best cardiac survivability rate at 45%. And I think the national norm is like 10, and we're at 45%. So, you know, if you're going to have a heart attack here in the city of Janesville, your chances are significantly higher surviving that trauma than if you're anywhere else in the nation. So what a great news story for, you know, Janesville, a community of 65,000. So great work by our fire department. Inside Neighborhood and Community Services, you know, they're really, it's an interesting organization, but they have housing, rec, and transit, and specifically from the Housing Services Division, they have rehabilitated 84 owner-occupied homes, 37 rental units, and executed 53 lead grants where people are able to remove lead from their homes. And then they've got 185 payment and closing cost assistance for first-time buyers. So some great work being done by them. I would offer that Janesville mobilizing for change. You know, when we started 5 years ago, they had 1 employee and you know, a single grant. Now I think they're operating with, you know, well over 4 or 5 grants to the tune of $500,000 to $1 million worth of grant funding. So they're totally grant funded and you know, doing great work. But one is a recent one, and that is the ability to educate and prevent alcohol and prescription drug abuse by teens and children. But that was a $100,000 grant, and so, you know, the fact that they're able to apply for it, get it, and then put it to use is huge for the community. And then one of the things that's kind of come to close, but the city, when I arrived here, was in a process of a program called Neighborhood Stabilization, where federal funds were provided to communities to help stabilize neighborhoods and improve neighborhoods, because they were, during the housing crisis, were tanking very, very fast. And so the city was able to put $2.6 million towards federal funding towards those home improvements and stabilization efforts in our challenged neighborhoods. And then, I guess lastly, one of the things that I get more than any other phone call is complaints about property maintenance. You know, someone who has a neighbor that's not maintaining their property to the standard that they should. And so what we've been able to do is we've been able to, when I got here, we were just dealing on a complaint basis. We had 2 inspectors to cover the entire city, and we've been able to generate a 3rd position, which is focused entirely on active enforcement as opposed to passive enforcement. And then we just, as I said, stood up that vacant building program, and so we have a vacant building coordinator to look at both vacant residential properties and vacant commercial properties. And so there are programs there to make sure that, you know, we don't see the blight levels across the city increase, that we actually see them come down. And then, you know, the last strategic goal is obviously the Rock River Corridor, and we've already talked about Monterey Dam, but, you know, that really is the big event that we've done in the last 5 years, specifically on the Rock River Corridor, besides what we've done in the downtown along the riverfront. So it has been an amazing 5 years. Lots of good stuff going on. I don't necessarily think that the community appreciates all that's gone on, but I thought this might be a good forum or an opportunity for us to share kind of some of the big ticket items that have happened over the past 5 years, because it's a great time to, you know, certainly live in Janesville. It's a great time to be a City of Janesville employee, and I would hope that the community agrees with me that it's a great time to be a resident or a business owner here in Janesville. So that's what I got.
Well, thank you so much, Mark, for being here today and giving our viewers insight into all of the exciting progress here in the city of Janesville, not only in 2018, but over the course of the last 5 years. And thank you, viewers at home, for tuning in. Next month, we'll be talking with Mark again, who will be joined by Finance Director Max Skagen. They'll be talking about the City of Janesville's 2019 budget and legislative opportunities going into the new year. In addition to tuning into this program on a monthly basis, stay connected to the City of Janesville by following us on Facebook or Twitter. You can also sign up to receive emails with our press releases and other important information. And you can subscribe to get emergency alerts from the Janesville Police Department on Nixle. For Park Place Views and the City of Janesville, I'm your host, Molly Nolte. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next month.